If someone came up to you and offered you $50 for your sock, would you give it to them?
All I know is if it came out years later, Taylor West gave away her sock for $1,000, I'd be like, and did.
I think the age of the influencer has us a little bit confused. Because even if you aren't an influencer, you still have a personal brand.
Now, I do know that there are people who have made themselves into a brand. But I don't know that we are all a brand. I don't know. Would we schedule our time to go out to eat?
No.
I don't think so.
This is Sistas Declassified, the podcast where
Taylor
and Taryn,
your virtual sisters, share experiences, insights, and of course the juicy secrets that never leave the sister circle.
So shh, listen up. The Declassified convos are starting now. Welcome back to Sistas Declassified. We're the real life sisters who decided to start a podcast instead of an OnlyFans.
But before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe for your weekly dose of declassified moments.
OnlyFans got you a little tripped up, huh? You weren't expecting that?
I can't say that I wanted an OnlyFans, so yeah, instead of OnlyFans for sure.
Speaking of OnlyFans, this is not, I don't know, this was definitely not a work appropriate conversation, but it was with people who I trust, so I think it's fine. But anyways, the conversation came up around like things you would do for money and like in theory things that might replace your job, right? Mm-hmm. Or your 9 to 5. And so one of the questions that came up was like, if someone came up to you and offered you $50 for your sock, absolutely, would you give it to them? Mm-hmm. You said absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's so interesting because just about everybody was like, absolutely, except for me. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And I said that wasn't worth it.
$50 for my sock that I spent $3 for?
My sock off my foot. Because I want the sock off my foot. And I just said that my anxiety would not let me give them the sock for many reasons. But the first few that come to mind. 1, what are they doing with the sock? Why do you want the sock? What's happening to the sock once it's not my sock anymore? That will haunt me. 2, where's the hidden camera? Because obviously this is going to be posted on social media. This is some sort of social experiment. And you will not be getting me. $50 is not enough.
For your sock.
For my sock. And then they're like, well, how much money is enough money? $1,000 would be plenty. And then I'm like, well, now I'm wondering where the money came from. Is it dirty? Now I got to deal with the police.
Listen, all I would be doing if the police came, Johnny asked for my sock. He said he was going to pay me $1,000. Thank you, Johnny.
Not worth $1,000. But you don't
Jobs stay work.
But you don't get to keep the money if the police are involved. If it's dirty money.
They didn't say that, though.
If it's dirty money, you don't get to keep it. If it's a part of a criminal investigation, you don't get to keep it.
How do they know I gave a sock?
Because they got it on camera.
How did they get it on camera if this was a criminal act? Like,
why
didn't they arrest him?
They got cameras around. You don't even know. Because you just let this random person...
Then how do they know that it was me with this random person? Because I don't got nothing on... They can't find me.
You're on social media, babes.
And they're going to be like, looking for a girl who sold her sock.
Listen.
Looking for the girl who
you are on Sistas Declassified. You have a personal brand.
Everybody know me.
You have a brand that you're a part of, and you have a personal brand that's attached to you. They can find you. That's all I'm saying.
All I know is if it came out years later, Taylor West gave away her sock for $1,000, I'd be like, and did. There's way worse things I could be doing.
Agreed. There are worse things you could be doing.
Because you know what my mind would go to? This person lost a bet.
And that's how I know it's on camera. That's how I know somebody recording this.
And I'm $1,000 richer. Anyway, but I hear you.
There's just a lot of brand. My personal brand wouldn't let me do it.
She's worried about what the imaginary fans later on might say.
I'm not the only one who should be worried. I think we all should be worried. And I think the age of the influencer has us a little bit confused. Because even if you aren't an influencer, you still have a personal brand. Right? There's still a version of you that's on a stage, if you will, that performs, whether you know it or not, for the world. And so I don't
know if everybody is performative.
I don't think that everyone is consciously performative. I think we all learn to use social context to tell us how to behave in certain environments.
For sure. But some people don't care about that.
But I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying they care. That doesn't mean they don't do it.
I guess. I have a hard time with this concept of people being their own. Everybody is a brand, right? Because I feel like a brand is trying to sell or persuade you on something. And some people might just be showing up as their authentic selves, not trying to persuade in any way. But that's how I think about a brand. But maybe I'm wrong in seeing it that way. Now, I do know that there are people who have made themselves into a brand. But I don't know that we are all a brand, right? Because then that, I think, requires a certain level of expectation, which is maybe what you're talking about. Of like, if later down the line I find out that I'm in charge in this like conspiracy where I sold my sock.
No, I think
that could look bad on my brand.
I don't think it's only based on future. I think it's also based on the present. I think how you show up, how you position yourself, determines how people treat you and how people respond to you in the world. I'm calling it a personal brand, kind of to match this like OnlyFans influencer to kind of be cheeky or whatever. But I think you could apply it to the professional world as well. Like an area where I want to improve my personal brand is my LinkedIn, my professional side. Like I have for many years been involved in content creation. I've created lots of content for myself, for this podcast, for other people. I can market that as a part of something I do professionally. I don't, but I could, and I could start by adding it to my LinkedIn, for example, or I just got a promotion, adding that to my LinkedIn, right? That's an area where I feel like I could grow in. I think somewhere where I'm more comfortable is on, like, I guess the more social media sites like Instagram, TikTok, what have you, where like I feel comfortable showing up in ways that other people might not feel comfortable showing up. But that's a part of like who I guess I am, and or who I want to be known as, right? Because ultimately what you do is what you're known as.
What you share is
what you're known as. And so you might not call it a personal brand, but it is your identity, right? And so I think we all have identities, and those identities influence how we're treated. It's similar to, you know, having a racial identity, right? You might feel one way or another and feel like your race doesn't dictate your interests or how you feel about certain things, but it doesn't matter because you don't exist in a vacuum. And so I guess that's kind of my point with thinking about yourself as a personal brand.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I do think it's interesting that you say that, because I've been contemplating a career pivot every now and then. So I just look at jobs and random things, or if it's like, or if I want my freedom back and I can just go back and be a nanny, but like for somebody really wealthy. So I was looking into websites like that, and one of the things that it said was, don't let your family meet you online. Like, meaning these wealthy
the family
people,
you nanny for?
Yeah, like these wealthy people are going to be searching you.
They're definitely
trying to see who might be in my house, right?
As they should.
Right, as they should, for sure. But that is interesting to think about, as like, what identity or personal brand am I showing myself? What light am I portraying for online viewers to see, or my potential employers, or my potential partner, or whatever the case may be. Like, however you're presenting yourself, I guess, could be your personal brand, because maybe you're not trying to sell yourself,
right?
But you are trying to connect with other people. You're posting online not just for you, like you're posting it to share.
Right, it's a form of expression.
So you are going to create a perspective or a perception from that. Yeah. Now, if somebody, I'm still saying, if somebody saw me online selling my sock, listen, my personal brand is I get my money up.
Well, I just think, I don't know, I've always been kind of just fascinated by the concept of all of us kind of being performers. And in college I was studying psychology, you know this, but I'm telling the peoples. And fashion psychology in particular is where I kind of learned the front stage and backstage, I guess, language. Who was it? I wrote a note. Irving Goffman. And I think basically the front stage is just like what people see, what we show to people. And then the backstage is thought to be like who we really are and who we are when no one's watching. Mm-hmm. And to Taylor's point, there are some people who show up as their backstage in every space. And I say that with an asterisk, right? Because I think
obviously
there is
everybody has something that they keep to the chest or just to the people that they feel very close to.
Yeah. But there's lots of benefits to acknowledging the stages that you're on in your social context. And I think it would be helpful if we just get into that for a second. And you kind of touched on it a little bit because in understanding who people are, you're able to build trust with each other and build community. If I don't know what you stand for or what you believe, if I have never heard you express anything, then I can't really connect with you. Mm-hmm. And so I think one of the things to think about, whether it's in your real life or online, is thinking about like what things you share that would allow others to build trust with you. Mm-hmm. And being intentional with, I guess, knowing the audience you might attract with that as well. So before we talk a little bit about the benefits of having a personal brand, I just want to be clear, the declassified moment for today. Even if you're not an influencer, we all have a personal brand. And what you're seen and known for kind of matters. And so I guess it's up to you to determine what that is exactly. Mm-hmm. And to know that you're ultimately on a stage.
Mm-hmm. So like when you share out, you're also kind of maybe sharing what you stand for and what is important when you create a perspective of yourself online or even in day-to-day life. Is that what you're meaning?
Yeah, and like I said earlier, you don't exist in a vacuum, and so the way that you move and operate is perceived. Mm-hmm. And so you can either choose to, I guess, take control of that perception, or you can choose to exist and, live with the consequences of either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess that's the self-awareness piece part of like, do I care what people think of me or what they perceive of me? And if I do, how do I want to reshape that perception or stand on that perception more or whatever the case is? So how do you feel like you do that? Or what does that look like for you since you are particular?
Okay. So I think one of the places where this shows up for me a lot is at work, just because that's, I think, one of the first places where I found out that I had to show up differently. And so I had to figure out how to still allow my authentic backstage self to be expressed. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to suppress myself, but I also needed to get folks to, or I guess influence folks to do certain things. And so I had to figure out how to have my front stage self kind of show up in a way that motivated people, as opposed to intimidated people or whatever. But I think ultimately there are a lot of benefits to, I guess, the awareness of the fact that you are someone who is perceived. Mm-hmm. And I know we talk about awareness a lot, because I think it just shows up in so many areas. There's a lot for us to account for in our lives, unfortunately, And so I think it's cool that we have this podcast to talk about it. But I think we can open a lot of doors for ourselves by acknowledging how we're perceived in different social contexts, whether that be at work, or like you said, it's an opportunity to create community as well. So if you express an interest in a certain area, it lets other people know who might be interested that they could talk to you or approach you about those sort of things. And in that space, you could also find a little bit of purpose, right? Because once you know what you enjoy or what you like or what you want to be known for, you can kind of push to continue to be in that space more, you know?
I think people often hide their interests, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you hide your interests but have this internal desire to have people connect with you on that interest or seek you out for that interest,
right?
That means you have to share it. Mm-hmm. People have to know that you are an expert or interested or whatever the case may be in order to see you in that light. But if you keep it all behind closed doors,
how would they know? Yeah. How would they know?
They might not have that perception of you.
Yeah. And aside from just building the community, it's also nice to have folks who have similar, I guess, agendas to you, but maybe different skill sets. So like we talked about earlier with unlocking neurodivergence and having folks kind of being able to hone in on what they really, really want to do.
Mm-hmm. I think that was last week.
Oh, was that last week?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That's right. My bad, girl. I be getting my wires crossed.
No, but I think you're right, though, in terms of if you can hone in on what you're really good at and expand on it and share it and not see it as like, oh, that's nerdy. If I only like that thing, you might see that there's a lot of people you can connect with on that topic, or that people are inspired by you honing in on your craft and sharing that with others. So yeah, it gives you that purpose, that community, that connection. But also I think probably improve your confidence as well, because if you can lean into what you're really good at or what you really enjoy doing and see that other people enjoy watching you do it, or like, I don't know, or can benefit from you doing it. And even if they can't, but can just look at it and be like, that's awesome that you like know what you want. Yeah. That can also be inspiring.
And I think that just unlocked something for me. And it's probably why I talk so much about work. Is because that's a place where I feel confident and I feel like I have my ducks in a row and know what to do, and like I guess I generally feel good in that space and feel good that I work for, you know, young people and underprivileged and underserved youth. And so knowing that there's purpose in that allows me to kind of show up in the ways I need to, or even adapt the ways that I show up so that I can be in that space. Speaking of adapting, I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't also name, though, that while there's power in being aware of, I guess, your ability to, I don't want to say manipulate, but your ability to kind of show up how you need to in certain spaces. Like there's certainly
code switch.
To code switch. There's certainly power in that, and that's a skill, right? And especially as African Americans, that's when we've had to adapt, right? But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the downside, right? There is a negative to this as well. So while we all are a personal brand, and I do still believe that, we don't want to overperform. We don't want to
be move outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So if you are trying to create a perception that's like is like inauthentic, maybe, is that what you're trying to say, or maybe doing something to achieve.
Yeah, so I'll relate it to content creation and the burnout that I've experienced myself. When I first started creating content, I was doing a lot of fashion and makeup and like beauty content. In my real life, I don't really, I like looking cute, but I'm not I don't like it enough to make it an everyday activity that I can create content about, that I would feel purpose driven in talking to people about, because I would often find myself going, what's the point of this? And if I don't feel like there's a point to it, I automatically feel like resistance to it. And so I was burning myself out and like burning my wheels trying to create content that I like didn't think was bad, but wasn't necessarily being received in the way I wanted it to be either. And it just got to the point where it was like, what am I doing this for? Oh, just to be a quote unquote content creator so that people think I am. Not fulfilling. Yeah. You know? And so that's an example for my life.
And like the overcompensation.
Yeah, where I can think of like,
you were trying to do what was trendy, what you saw other people doing to gain notoriety or like influence.
I guess so. I was repeating what I thought worked without recognizing why it worked for those people that I saw.
Yeah, it was their personal brand. It was what they are actually into, or and there's a level of authenticity that you feel, I think.
Right. Like I think last episode we also talked about like the energy you feel in exchange. I think I was also, in watching their content, responding to their energy that they have creating it. And like, I guess hoping to emulate it for myself. And it was not translating, at least in the way that I was doing it originally. And so I like stopped creating that content altogether, really, because it just wasn't genuine.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece to it. Like people who want to post online and it's like all aesthetics, and it's all like, I do know that there are people who really love the aesthetics or want to decorate in a certain way, have their fall decor in their house that looks like Instagram worthy or whatever.
The lifestyle girlies are killing it right now.
They are, and I get it. But is that there are people you watch that's like, is this you? Would you be doing this if you weren't filming it.
Very true.
Like, but there are others, obviously, who they do it and it's like, yeah,
yes,
you do this all
Can
year.
I give a shout out real quick? You can find her on Instagram, Every Last Layer. I don't know if you've seen her before, but I want to say she's in Dallas or Austin, somewhere in Texas now with her fiance. And they basically have flipped their apartment into like a hotel. So this is something she's enjoyed doing and then just decided to start filming, and one of those things that kind of turned into something else. But basically every room in their apartment looks like it belongs in a hotel, or at least that's the process that they're working on. It's very cool. I'll attach their insert some clips, but it's very cool. Yeah. So that just reminded me of someone who was like just genuinely doing something and decided to put the camera up versus like trying to be the fall decor queen. She's just still doing her thing while all the other girls are doing the fall stuff.
Yeah. And that's cool. That sounds cool. I want to look it up because I need to redo my own house. But so those kind of things are inspirational, and I think that is what shapes your brand, right? Now people know, oh, I can go reach out to Nina. Where'd you find that thing? How did you decide? How did you organize your time in order to do this? How did you budget for it? Like, those are things now that you could probably ask her as a credible source. And it's not like her brand per se, because she's not saying like, come to me to find these things out. But you see that she is someone who has done this, and you can now seek her as a...
Like, follow her journey.
Yeah. But I think that can also be hard as someone who maybe knows information or is interested in something, but doesn't feel like they are ready for
an
questions.
Audience.
Yes. Because that could be the other flip side of the imposter syndrome of it all. It's like, if I share with people that I do this, are they going to then think that they can come to me with questions, or that they can seek me out for these topics, or do they think I'm weird for it?
Yeah, I guess there's two sides. Like, what if it's successful and now I have to show up as the thing I've positioned myself as? Or what if it's not successful, or people don't receive it well, and now I have to field doubt? Where's the middle? The middle is people don't care. Most people don't care.
Most people don't care, or they don't care long term. Like, they might care in that moment, but news cycles are quick and perceptions change.
Yeah.
But what will make you feel good, I guess, is the question in the long run. So, like, yes, you can be a personal brand, but if you know what you stand on and what you stand for, and if you're a good person, and then you want to share something with others or shape the perception of yourself in order to, I don't know, achieve your purpose, that's not the worst thing either. But I guess being considerate of all outcomes or later outcomes. If the police comes for me selling my socks, then you know.
I forgot about that.
It's still something to consider, your long-term impact when you are sharing your content.
Yes, and not just content, but just in real life too, in any space. I think.
Do you know your words stick? Do you know your actions can still go on with someone later on?
And so just making sure you set time to reflect in the areas you care about, set goals, and even seek mentorship if you need it. So I think we can close with our Sister Circle question for today, which is, where do you feel like your most authentic self, and what do you think people gain from knowing you, either in real life or online? Ooh, that's a deep one.
That's a deep one.
Do you have a quick answer for the people? I'm like thinking of mine real quick.
I think from knowing me, people gain. I don't know. That's a tricky question, I think
my quick answer is that, at least something I've heard something I've heard from other people that I'll accept is like, I come off as like, I guess, honest or vulnerable. And because I'm able to share like my journey and just my life online, some people find that inspiring to be able to express myself in that way. And so I guess I hope to inspire other people to be their honest selves, because that's like always what I want from people, because I feel like then that helps me be my most authentic self, and I know everybody's showing up with all their cards on the table.
Yeah. And I think one thing I think people gain, it depends on the area of life.
Yeah, totally.
Like at work, I think people gain a sense of clarity from me, or understanding, also like flexibility. someone who can just kind of roll with the vibes of the whatever we need that day. And that can be helpful, especially in the school system. And like in day-to-day life, I think people maybe gain a sense of, similarly to you, like the honesty. They know that they can come to me with like a challenge, but also maybe like the discipline of it all. And maybe I think that is something that people have shared being inspired by. For me, although I don't feel like disciplined myself, I think that is a perception I carry.
I'd be looking at you like, Taylor, and me and Mom will say it all the time, Taylor's just on it. When Taylor wants to do something, that's my mom voice. When Taylor wants to do something, she just does it.
Yes. And I appreciate that I have that perception. But in my mind, I'm like, that's the imposter syndrome of like, whew, I don't know. Because every day I wake up and I'm like, there's so much I should be doing and I'm not. But that's a conversation for another day. So I think it's good to reflect on that, though. What do people gain from having me in their life? And do I want people to gain something from me being in their life?
Yeah, and I would say if you're not sure where to start, don't be afraid to ask people. Because I actually have a little screenshot, an album I keep in my phone of when people have like messaged me something or said something that made me go, oh, you see me. You see what I want you to see in me, great. So that when I'm feeling like I'm not doing it, I can go back and look and see. Look at all these people who felt inspired or believed or whatever. All because you posted that little thing or sent them a message or what have you.
And I think the vulnerability piece is really big. I think when people see others being vulnerable online, even if they're not going to go and be vulnerable online, it still might help them to be open to the people that they have around them. So, yeah. Guess we're going to close it out today. So we thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And again, we're on our road to 100 subscribers, so please share it with your friends and family.
Almost there.
We'd love to continue to share. So, yay.
See you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.